Joining us now is a former special assistant to President Trump, Kelly Sadler. Kelly, great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Kelly, the media sure does love these stories about President Trump's hotel properties, don't they?
Well, you know, we see these stories repeatedly over and over again, the same narrative. And let's just take a step back. Before the president became the president, before he stepped into the Oval Office, he was a successful real estate developer owning several hotel properties. He was a billionaire. He got into office and he's foregone his salary. He donates that back to the government every single month. So the underlying narrative with all these stories is somehow the president wanted the presidency to profit, to gain profits off of his business, when really the reverse is true. We look at a New York Times story from several months ago where they went through all of his properties, and actually all of his properties except for one have lost revenue since he's become president. And the president has addressed this, saying, you know, I think there's a little bit of a political bias from me becoming president and people not wanting to go to the properties. So, I mean, actually the reverse is true, but the media is going to keep pounding this narrative. It's nothing like Hunter Biden. It's nothing like him being on the board of Burisma, getting paid $50,000 a month because his father is vice president.
You know, there's also this lawsuit out of Washington, D.C. today. The Attorney General's office in the District of Columbia has filed a lawsuit against the Trump Organization and President Trump's inaugural committee. This happened yesterday. The lawsuit alleges that the president's luxury hotel in D.C. illegally received more than $1 million from the inauguration-related event space rentals. But this was 3 years ago. Do you think there's anything to the timing of this lawsuit?
Oh, I think absolutely. They want to kind of jump on the impeachment political narrative bandwagon. So if this was a real thing, it would have been brought to the forefront shortly after the inaugural. The President Trump's inaugural committee raised $107 million, and that was the most out of any presidency. And the Trump Hotel and the Trump Organization said that they paid fair rate. They paid $1 million to use the hotel for over several days, putting on several balls and different events, and that was market rate. So if this was a real problem, this should have been brought forth 3 years ago rather than right now.
All right, let's bring in former Obama advisor and Democratic strategist Lori A. Watkins. Lori, great to see you. Thanks for being here as well.
Thank you, John.
All right, I want to talk a little bit more about some attack ads because Michael Bloomberg has released a new national TV ad. It's blasting President Trump for his treatment of military leaders. The new ad focuses on a report in a book by the Washington Post's Carol Leonnig and Philip Rucker that details how President Trump unloaded on the nation's top military leaders in a private meeting, called them a bunch of dopes and babies, according to that story. Here's the new Bloomberg ad.
The Pentagon. President Trump arrives for a briefing by top military leaders. Trump explodes, attacks the war heroes in the room as losers and a bunch of dopes and babies. Many in the room had risked their lives for our country, soldiers, heroes, attacked by an erratic and out-of-control president. Arrogance, ignorance, chaos. Enough. America needs a steady leader who will honor those who serve.
I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
Well, Lori, Mike Bloomberg's going all in, attacking President Trump. There's also another ad to complement that one that uses the president's own words and sound bites from his inauguration to attack him. Do you think these ads will be effective?
I do think they're effective, and they already have proven to be effective. Mike Bloomberg has already come out and said unequivocally that he is in this race to defeat Donald Trump. It doesn't matter if he doesn't win the nomination. He even went out further to say that he will support any Democratic nominee and continue to put his own money into ads, into people going out into the field, into communication messages showing what a terrible job Donald Trump is doing for this country, specifically going after policy. And this is not just about the impeachment. Policies that have hurt the American people.
Kelly, what do you think about these ads? Bloomberg seems to be taking on Donald Trump directly, not going after his Democratic rivals. Do you think it'll work?
Well, I mean, that is the problem with these ads. It's as though Mike Bloomberg thinks he's in the general election against the president of the United States, but first he needs to win the Democratic nominee. He is not competing in the first four primary states in Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, and South Carolina. So he's expecting to work some miracles on Super Tuesday with Democratic voters, but he really isn't in the race for the nomination. So I think that Michael Bloomberg should take aim at Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, if he's actually very serious about becoming the next president of the United States.
Well, he's going to have to get in line to take on Joe Biden, at least, because Bernie Sanders is now looking to make the race for the Democratic nomination for president just a two-man race, and he wants to focus his attention on Joe Biden. We showed you this yesterday, but a new CNN poll has Bernie Sanders now at the top with Biden. He's also doing well in Iowa, New Hampshire, and South Carolina. In fact, Sanders is ahead of Biden, 27 to 24%, but within the margin of error, a statistical tie. Sometimes it's hard for me to say that. Now, earlier today, we also spoke with political strategist and former Trump advisor Roger Stone about Bernie's chances. Let's take a listen.
Bernie is going to sweep the early contest. Biden is going to not even finish in the top three, in my opinion, and that's the end of his candidacy. Bloomberg then is going to try to grab the moderate corporate Democrat, not insane constituency, but it's very hard to stop an object moving like a comet from a dead standstill. Right. That's what he's going to try to do.
Right. So, Laura, what do you think about this? I mean, if you look at the map ahead and, Bernie Sanders lead in some of these states, he definitely has a clear path to victory. Maybe not a clear path, but a path to victory nonetheless. What do you think about his odds of actually capturing the nomination at this point in the race?
Bernie Sanders looks like he wants a one-on-one fight with Joe Biden. It's no longer the focus is Elizabeth Warren. This week he's going after Biden. He is trying to go after those white suburban older voters. That's why you saw the attack ads about Social Security and Vice President Biden's former policies, or trying to distort that message. But that's not true. He unequivocally came out again today saying that it wasn't, and then Bernie Sanders apologized to it. And then they came out and both had attack ads against one another again. So it's starting to get really interesting, but I think Bernie knows that his biggest rival right now, his biggest opponent, is Joe Biden.
Yeah, when you see these negative ads, and Bernie Sanders has stayed away from doing this for the most part, but Kelly, to me, this says that Bernie Sanders feels like he has an option to go in for the kill shot.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, eventually, they're going to have to start throwing punches if you want to win the nomination. And Bernie Sanders has a very enthusiastic, grassroots base. He has brought more money in than Joe Biden. He brings more crowds in, quite frankly, to his events. He's now got AOC out there on the campaign trail with him. And he really appeals to the more progressive part of the Democratic Party. And we're going to see where the chips fall here, whether or not the Democrats want a more moderate candidate or a more radical socialist like Bernie Sanders. It's going to be interesting to watch.
Yes, his future vice president nominee, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I kid, but she is the number 2 person on his surrogate list, right behind Bernie Sanders. Kelly, Lori, stay right where you guys are. We're coming back. All right, CNN political analyst and former Clinton press secretary Joe Lockhart admitted that he made up a conversation between 2 Republican senators. This all played out on Twitter. Lockhart tweeted this: overheard a convo between 2 Republican senators who only watch Fox News. Is this real stuff? I haven't heard any of this before. I thought it was all about a server. If half the stuff Schiff is saying is true, we're up a creek. Hope the White House has exculpatory evidence, end quote. Well, a few minutes later, he added, okay, maybe I made up the convo, but that's exactly what they're thinking. And after getting even more criticism, Lockhart tweeted, quote, everyone relax. This is satire to make the point that these senators who are deciding the president's fate only watch Fox News. They never heard this stuff before because Fox is part of the cover-up. Well then, let's bring back Kelly Sadler and Lori Watkins. Lori, first to you. This is a good lesson, kind of. Maybe there should be a separate font when you want to be sarcastic or use satire on Twitter, because when you're someone like Joe Lockhart, who has that position of former press secretary, you got to be careful what you're tweeting out there, because you never know what somebody's going to take seriously.
Well, I don't think what he did was cool at all. I think it was unprofessional because, like you said, the kind of position that this individual has, especially because he's a reporter for a news network, that what he puts out in a tweet people take as news or truth. I will say that I do not think anything that is going on right now with our government, with the impeachment trial, is a joke, that it is a laughing matter. We are talking about our Constitution and the future of our country and our freedom and what our democracy stands for. So I don't think any of this is a joke.
Kelly?
Well, I think that CNN has a lot of a responsibility here that it's been dodging. Basically, where is Brian Stelter, the media critic? Where is Oliver Darcy? Where is the Washington Post that fact checks pretty much every Republican, Margaret Sullivan or Glenn Kessler, criticizing this tweet? Why didn't the CNN PR condemn the tweet and have it be retracted? The fact that it's still out there in the internet is just a shame, and it just speaks to the level of which, CNN lets Democrats and their contributors off the hook, but at the same time, holds Republicans or someone with a counter point of view to a higher standard.
Yeah, you can make the case for a double standard there. It's up to the audience to decide to make a change and change the channel. Some people want that information. They just want to be stroked, but that's not always the best way to go about it. We thank our panelists tonight, Lori Watkins and Kelly Sadler. Great to see you both. Good conversation. Look forward to having you both back again real soon. Coming up, a new documentary on human trafficking is out. We'll talk with the executive producer and